What if your relationship that you feel is loving, that you feel is great, is actually just enmeshed, right? It actually reminds you of a familial dynamic because you come from enmeshment. You never learned healthy, loving dynamics in relationships. You only learned to be enmeshed with people. Now, I'm not here to invalidate that you have feelings for the person. I'm not here to invalidate that you don't love the person, right? I'm not here to say that. No. What I am here to do is to look at the reality of the dynamic. You can love the person. You absolutely can. You can be in love with somebody and be enmeshed with them at the same time, right? I'm not here to invalidate feelings, but what I am here to do is look at the reality of the dynamic of the situation because there is a very fine difference between healthy love and unhealthy love, or you could also call it enmeshed love, right? So let's look at the difference. But first, before that, let's look at the dynamic of enmeshed unhealthy love and go way back to the FOO, right? The family of origin, right? The very reason that you're in an enmeshed relationship, if you are in an enmeshed relationship, is because that's the dynamic that you learned in childhood. You learned enmeshment. You learned diffused boundaries. You learned lack of individuality. You learned to be fucking tangled with people, right? You learned a lack of individuation and a lack of differentiation. You learned to be overly involved in another person's life. You learned to be overly responsible in another person's life. You learned that the other person's shit is your shit and your shit is the other person's shit, right? You learned that you can't be okay if that person's not okay. You learned that how that person sees you is how you see yourself, right? These are all enmeshed dynamics. Healthy love, and when I say healthy love, I mean it's pretty much black or white, right? Healthy love consists of two individuals, right? Um, that see each other as individuals. They see each other as their own people, right? And they are respectfully treated as such. And the thing about enmeshment is that there are so many boundary violations, right? There are obviously because boundaries are diffused. Boundaries pretty much don't even exist. And that's just the reality of it. Now, let me say something right now that will make everything make a lot more sense. Have you ever believed that love is painful? I have. I've believed that love is painful. Like throughout my entire life, I've believed that love is painful. And I've also believed that because love is painful, anything, any relationship that I have seeked out that has not matched that, that has not felt like that has not made me think, hey, love is painful, I've ran away from them, right? Whatever feels peaceful, whatever feels calm to people that are in enmeshed relationships, they're not going to like it, right? It's not that love is actually painful. Love isn't painful. Healthy love, at least. Healthy love is not painful. Healthy love is lovely. It's glorious. It's peaceful. It's respectful. It's wonderful, right? It's unhealthy love and meshed love that is painful. It is the love, I'm going to put quotes around it, love that is unhealthy, that is enmeshed, that hinders your potential at being your own autonomous individual because you pretty much feel like you can't, right? Enmeshed love is where an individual doesn't really feel like they can be themselves because the other person has created all of these rules that are really very controlling and it completely stagnates the other person. I mean, they choose to be in a relationship with that person because it's comfortable and familiar. It reminds them to their early childhood programming, right? And upbringing and all the dynamics in that. That's why they're there. We choose whatever it is comfortable and familiar to us, right? If a person is raised in the healthiest possible childhood, right, where they get to have healthy boundaries, they get to have individuation and differentiation, they would never choose enmeshment. They would never choose enmeshment. They wouldn't. They would see it for what it is and be like, oh, wow, yeah, that's not healthy, right? And then they would attract somebody that is healthy and they would start a relationship and a family and this, that, and the other. That's just the reality of that, right? But people that are used to enmeshment seek enmeshment. And that's just the reality of it, right? Now, this is the reality of many loving relationships. This is the truth about many loving relationships. You might love the person, and I'm also going to add on top of that, you might be very used to associating enmeshment with love. So, again, I'm not here to invalidate any feelings that you might have for a person. I'm not here to do that. But what I'm here to say is that what you learned as love might actually be enmeshment, right? I mean, imagine it, right? Imagine you are molded into this person who is taught by somebody that loving somebody means being enmeshed with them, that their shit is your shit is their shit. How they see you is how you see yourself. How they feel about you is how you feel about yourself. This, that, and the other. That's all enmeshment. Being so entangled with somebody else's mental and emotional well being, somebody's own mental and emotional universe, right? You may have learned that that is love. And I'm not here to invalidate your feelings, again, like I was saying before. But what I am here to do is look at that for what the fuck it is, as a dynamic of fucked upness, because it is. Healthy love doesn't stop you from being your own autonomous individual. It doesn't stop you from being your own self. Healthy love doesn't require you to bend over backwards and jump through fucking hoops and be enmeshed with people. It doesn't. So, this is why it's important to understand that the other way around is exceedingly dysfunctional and unhealthy, right? Um, love is painful? No, it's not. Enmeshment is painful. Boundary violations are painful. A lack of static sense of self because you were so glued into and sucked into enmeshment growing up that you never really got to take time to yourself to learn who the fuck you are, right? That's painful. Saying yes when you want to say no is painful. Feeling obligated is painful. Feeling shameful is painful. Feeling guilted is painful. All of these are usually present in dynamics of enmeshment. Somebody that is in a healthy relationship, they're not going to find themselves with somebody that makes them feel these ways, right? Um, or I should say, instead of makes them feel these ways, they're not going to be in a relationship with somebody where they feel these ways, right? Because neurotic shame, guilt, all of that stuff, neurotic worry, is unhealthy. And healthy individuals do not find themselves in situations with unhealthy people. That's just the reality of it. So maybe you've never experienced healthy love in your life before, right? Maybe you've only ever experienced being enmeshed with somebody and you've learned to identify that and associate it with love, right? It's not good or bad or right or wrong. It's just unhealthy, right? Imagine being in a relationship with somebody where you get to have your own sense of self, right? Where there are actual clear boundaries in place and you get to be your own autonomous individual. You get to have your own life. You don't have to be so sucked into their universe and be constantly overly responsible for them and caretaking them, whether mentally and emotionally, financially, whatever it is. Whatever it is. And now let me make this very clear too. People that are so used to, so comfortable and familiar with enmeshment and all of these unhealthy and boundaryless dynamics, they're going to have a very hard time with healthy love, because their idea of love is being overly responsible for somebody else. Healthy love, well, hold on, let me just say this real quick. More often than not, I'll say this before I end off. More often than not, when you find yourself in a situation of somebody where you are enmeshed with them, the dynamic is comfortable and familiar, but there's usually not a mutual back and forth give and take, meaning that you're probably not getting anything in the relationship other than maybe inconsistent and intermittent crumbs of love and affection, which are completely half baked and utterly bullshit, right? You might be afraid of getting the whole fucking pie because it's not comfortable or familiar, right? If you were to get the whole fucking pie, you'd probably run, right? But this video is just me talking about how you need to understand that there's a fine difference between healthy love and unhealthy or enmeshed love, right? And the difference is that one of them has boundaries, healthy boundaries, individuation, differentiation, two individuals that are not tangled together, right? And the other one is the opposite of that. And it is painful. It is, because a lot of abusive shit ends up taking place, and that's the reality of it. So, yeah, you might love them, but you might also be enmeshed with them. Knowing the difference is absolutely crucial here.